The hall of the Galactic Council was filled with tension. The Great Chamber, usually alive with debate and diplomacy, now echoed with uneasy silence. Thousands of species had sent their delegates, some towering and insect-like, others glowing or shifting like mist, but every eye was turned toward the central screen, where the image of Earth's last message blinked in a quiet loop. For years, humanity had been part of the Council. Unlike other species that took centuries to reach the stars, humans had leapt through technological eras in decades. They solved problems differently, thought dangerously, and when they fought, they did so with a fury the galaxy had never seen before. At first, they were ignored. Then, they were studied. Later, feared. And now, they had disappeared. Without a single warning, Earth had cut off all communication. Their ships vanished from neutral space. Their ambassadors went home and never returned. Even automated trade beacons had gone dark. It wasn't a war. It wasn't peace. It was something worse: complete silence. High Chancellor Varak II of the Krell Dominion sat at the head of the long table, his many eyes blinking in confusion. He had lived for 400 cycles and seen 5 interstellar wars, but never had a species acted this way. To leave the Council was rare. To vanish completely was unheard of. Why would the humans withdraw now? He asked, his deep voice rumbling through the chamber. They had influence, power, even allies among us. No one answered. Not the Sarathi, who once traded ship designs with Earth. Not the Threxians, who once called humans brothers in blood. Not even the cold, logical Valari, whose machines had worked side by side with human engineers. Every representative avoided each other's gaze, unsure whether to speak or wait. The silence grew heavier with each passing second. Then, the representative from the Archaean Collective floated forward. His body was translucent, like water with thought. He spoke calmly, but the fear in his voice was clear. This is not a political decision. This is a message. The humans are sending a signal not just to us, but to the galaxy. Others murmured in agreement. Something was wrong. The humans were never reckless. If they acted, there was always a reason. But this action was too sudden. It felt like the first move in a larger game that no one else could see. And worst of all, there had been no warning. Not even a whisper. The last official communication had come 3 weeks ago, and it was a regular trade update. Then silence. A younger representative from the lesser-known Alvaron species stood up hesitantly. Maybe they were threatened, she suggested. Maybe an outside force? Something unknown? But even as she said the words, she realized how hollow they sounded. If something had threatened Earth, the humans wouldn't run, they would retaliate. That was their nature. What could possibly make a species like humans hide instead of fight? What could scare them or anger them so much that they would disappear from the Council without a word? A sudden beep echoed through the chamber, drawing every eye to the information console. A surveillance probe had just returned from the edge of Sol System. The data was minimal, but shocking. Earth had activated a deep space barrier, invisible to most detection systems. Nothing could get in, and nothing could get out. No signals, no broadcasts, not even light in some spectrums. It was as if the planet had sealed itself behind a wall of silence. The representative from the Valari stood slowly, its synthetic voice flat but sharp. They've built something. Something even we don't understand. This level of cloaking. It's beyond anything previously shown. This was planned. Not days ago. Not weeks. This was prepared long before now. A chilling realization spread across the room. Earth had not left suddenly. They had been planning this for a long time. The Council had been watched, studied, and perhaps judged. And now, the humans had chosen to step away on their own terms. But the question remained, why? What had they discovered? What had pushed them to this final, quiet break from the rest of the galaxy? Rumors began spreading in low voices. Some spoke of a lost transmission, an ancient message from a forgotten species, hidden deep in Earth's moon. Others whispered about a secret program, something involving human minds and galactic technology. But nothing was confirmed. Nothing was clear, and that only made the fear worse. The Chancellor turned off the main screen, leaving the chamber in low light. "Until we understand what has happened," he said slowly, "we must proceed with caution. Do not provoke them. Do not investigate without approval. If Earth has changed its path, we must not be the ones to stand in their way." His words hung in the air like a warning. The meeting ended without conclusion, without agreement, and without peace. Every representative returned to their homeworld carrying one question that burned hotter than a star: what are the humans doing? And what happens next? Even in the far corners of the galaxy, on mining moons and star-forged cities, the silence of Earth echoed like thunder. Merchants whispered about vanishing human cargo ships. Spies were sent, but none returned. Scientists replayed human messages from the past, searching for hidden meaning. Armies were quietly placed on alert. Fear settled like a shadow across civilizations once proud and secure. Because if there was one thing every species had learned through their dealings with humanity, it was this: when humans go silent, something is coming. And when it comes, it changes everything. In the days following Earth's sudden withdrawal from the Galactic Council, fear turned into obsession. Across the stars, powerful empires, ancient species, and advanced AI minds scrambled to uncover any clue that might explain why humanity had vanished behind silence. The disappearance was not only a political mystery, it had become a galactic crisis. Entire systems paused their expansion. Trade slowed. Even rivalries between longtime enemies were temporarily forgotten, replaced by a shared anxiety. What did the humans know, and what were they planning? The Valari, masters of deep space observation, sent their finest stealth drones toward Sol System, hoping to slip past the strange barrier now hiding Earth from the galaxy. One by one, their drones vanished without a trace. No explosion. No signal. Just silence. The Archaean Collective tried a different approach. They sent an emissary to Mars, a planet previously open to visitors. But when the ship reached Mars' orbit, all it found was an empty station, powered down and lifeless. Even the human colony's automated defense grid had been disassembled. It was as if every piece of Earth's presence in space had been pulled back, hidden from the stars. Then came a strange discovery. A lone human message pod was found drifting near the border of Council space, far from any planet. It wasn't transmitting, just floating in silence. Carefully, a research vessel brought it aboard. The scientists approached it with caution, unsure if it was a trap or some hidden weapon. Instead, they found a small data crystal inside. When activated, the message it held was brief and terrifying: "We're not your experiment anymore." The words were delivered in a calm human voice, but the meaning struck like a lightning bolt. An ancient rumor that had once been dismissed as conspiracy now rushed back into the minds of the Council's oldest members. Long ago, before humans had even discovered electricity, some Council species had viewed Earth as a perfect observation ground. A planet rich in emotion, aggression, creativity, ideal for controlled evolution studies. It was whispered that Earth had been secretly influenced, not invaded, but gently guided, warped with subtle genetic tweaks, silent monitoring, and planted technology. These experiments had supposedly been stopped centuries ago, once humanity began advancing too quickly. But if the humans had discovered the truth, the consequences would be beyond imagination. The message suggested betrayal, a violation of trust so deep that Earth had chosen to cut ties with all of galactic civilization. Not for power, not for war, but because of something that had been done to them in the shadows of their history. Now the Council feared more than war, they feared justice. The Krell Dominion opened its archives and began scanning records from 1,000 cycles ago, trying to trace every interaction with early human civilizations. What they found only added to the panic. There were references to lost observation stations hidden in Earth's oceans, primitive brain mapping devices planted in ancient tombs, and mysterious disappearances of early human explorers near crash sites that had never been explained. It was no longer a theory. The past had returned to haunt them. The humans had been watched, studied, manipulated, and now they were awake. One Council faction, desperate for answers, sent a stealth team toward the dark side of Earth's moon, hoping to find anything that might explain the sudden shift in human behavior. They never made it. The moment their ship entered Earth's moon orbit, it vanished. No explosion, no communication, no distress signal, only silence, again. And then came a second message, delivered not through transmission, but encoded into a recovered human satellite that had been drifting near Jupiter. This time, the message was even colder. Do not come closer. The age of observation is over. If you try again, we will respond. It was no longer just silence. It was a warning. The galaxy finally understood what made this situation more terrifying than any war. They had no idea what Earth's capabilities were anymore. Humans had always adapted quickly. They learned, copied, improved, and created new things even faster than most advanced species. If they had truly uncovered the truth about their past, and if they had spent years preparing in secret, there was no telling how far their technology had advanced. Perhaps they had discovered something beyond weapons, something that could change the rules of reality itself. Whispers began to spread in every major spaceport. Some believed that Earth had built a new form of AI, one that fused human emotion with machine logic. Others thought humans had unlocked ancient alien artifacts, maybe even from a species older than the Council itself. And a few feared that humanity had simply decided it was better to disappear and prepare in silence than continue playing politics with those who once saw them as lab animals. The Chancellor of the Galactic Council called for calm, but his words fell on deaf ears. Smaller civilizations began to strengthen their borders. Traders refused to carry human goods. Information networks were flooded with wild theories and hidden messages. But in the center of it all, Earth remained silent. No ships left their system. No messages were sent. Only the two warnings and the terrifying realization that the humans were not angry, not panicking. They were calm, focused, and in full control. They had erased their presence with precision. And that kind of silence was far more frightening than any war cry. It meant they were watching. It meant they had not forgotten. And most of all, it meant they had a plan. What that plan was, no one knew. But every intelligent species in the galaxy understood one truth. Humanity had disappeared for a reason. And whatever that reason was, it was still unfolding. Far beyond the known borders of the Galactic Council's influence, in a dead sector marked as uninhabitable and forgotten by most, a quiet scientific outpost hidden beneath the ice crust of a rogue planet detected something that had not stirred for millennia. A pulse, a slow, deep, rhythmic signal buried beneath the frozen rock woke up the monitoring system, which hadn't received any activity for over 10,000 years. The signal was old, far older than the Council itself, and written in a language no known species could understand. The outpost, originally built by the Obrexians to study dead star systems, was manned by only 4 researchers who had never expected to find anything but ice and silence. But the pulse didn't stop. It grew stronger by the hour. Scans revealed that deep within the planet, there was a structure impossibly large, built of a metal that didn't match any material on record, and still active. What alarmed the scientists the most wasn't the age of the structure, it was the presence of an encryption pattern almost identical to one recently observed in Earth's last message. The same rhythm. The same strange shifts in energy. The humans, it seemed, had found something first. And they had been using it. News of the discovery reached the Council with hesitation. Too many were still reeling from Earth's silent departure. Too many feared even speaking the name of humanity now. But the encrypted pattern was undeniable. Earth had encountered this ancient signal long before the Council had. Maybe years ago. Maybe decades. And instead of reporting it, they had kept it hidden. That changed everything. Suddenly, the theory spread like fire. Earth had not only found a lost relic from the universe's forgotten age, they had learned from it, possibly awakened it, and maybe even forged an alliance with something older and more powerful than anything currently alive. The Council immediately dispatched a high-security fleet to the rogue planet, not to destroy the site, but to control it. Quietly, without attracting attention, they wanted to study what the humans had touched. They believed that if they could understand the ancient technology, they could regain the balance of power. But when the fleet arrived, they found the planet's crust split open and the outpost destroyed from within. No signs of life. No signs of battle. Just silence. And something even more disturbing, evidence that the ancient structure was no longer there. It had moved. Or rather, it had been taken. Massive tunnels led away from the empty core, melted through ice and rock as if by unimaginable heat. Something had emerged from beneath the planet, and it had left no trail. Only a single symbol was found, scorched into the walls of the collapsed outpost, the same mark used in the last human transmission. A circle split by 3 sharp lines. No one could read it, but everyone understood it meant ownership. Whatever this ancient machine had been, the humans had claimed it. Or perhaps it had claimed them. The realization shattered any remaining calm in the Galactic Council. A secret summit was called, this time without any records or communication networks allowed. Only the oldest and most trusted members were invited. There, the truth was finally whispered. It was a beacon, a remnant from a time when the galaxy had not yet been tamed by logic and science, a time of chaos, raw power, and entities that could bend space without ships, alter biology without medicine, and speak across light years without words. Myths called them the first architects, creatures that had built the foundation of galaxies before retreating into the void. Until now, no one believed they were real. But if the humans had made contact, and if they had been chosen as the new bearers of this forgotten legacy, then everything the galaxy knew about balance, control, and superiority had already changed. Worse still, a new theory emerged in the quiet corners of the Council's archives. What if humans hadn't just found the Architect's beacon? What if they were a product of it? A long sleeping project that had finally reached maturity? The signs were all there: their rapid evolution, their chaotic minds, their ability to survive in conditions most species couldn't. What if Earth had been the Architect's last experiment, hidden in plain sight until the right time? And now, with the beacon active and the humans silent, that time had come. The panic that followed wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, careful, dangerous. Empires began to arm in secret. Old alliances were questioned. Rogue fleets moved to watch the edges of Sol System, trying not to get too close. Everyone waited for Earth's next move, but nothing came. Just like before, the silence held. But unlike before, that silence now carried a heavy shadow. Something ancient had awakened, something that had chosen humanity, or perhaps been waiting for them all along. The galaxy was no longer the same. And in the empty space where the rogue planet once lay in peace, now floated a faint trail of energy vanishing into the stars, heading toward Earth. The architects were not forgotten anymore. And humanity was no longer just a mystery; they were now the key to something far greater. Die in the shadow of ancient fears and rising panic. The galaxy watched the Sol System with growing unease. No transmissions came from Earth. No ships left its orbit. No words, no warnings, only silence. But then, as if from a crack in reality, a single vessel emerged from the dark stretch of space near the Council's central territory. It was not large, not armed, not even properly identified. It did not match any existing model or species, and yet its hull bore clear marks that none could mistake human origin. It moved slowly, almost peacefully, toward a secure observation station orbiting the neutral world of Sirex 9, where hundreds of diplomats and observers from across the galaxy had gathered to monitor any shift in the situation. The station, designed to track distant warships and manage interstellar diplomacy, was not prepared to face a lone, unidentified human craft. Panic spread through its control centers as the ship ignored all hails, responded to no communication, and continued its approach without pause. Defense systems locked on, but no action was taken. No one wanted to be the first to fire on a human vessel after Earth's quiet withdrawal. The ship stopped just beyond the station's docking perimeter. It hovered there, still and silent. Then, without warning, the doors of the docking bay opened, though no command had been given. A low vibration shook the station's metal bones, and all systems flickered for exactly 7 seconds. When the lights returned, one figure stood in the center of the docking bay. Alone. No guards, no weapons, no greeting. Just a single human. He was tall, dressed in black that shimmered slightly under artificial light, and wore no visible armor. His face was calm but unreadable, as if carved from stone and shadow. And the path from space to that exact point inside the station had been sealed off by multiple barriers, none of which had been triggered or breached. It was as if he had simply appeared. Security forces surrounded him within moments, but he made no move. He raised no hands, issued no threats. Instead, he spoke a single sentence in perfect galactic standard. Though his lips barely moved, the architects have watched enough. Those words, simple as they were, sent a ripple of dread through every being present. It was confirmation not only that the ancient powers were real, but that they were awake and somehow aligned with humanity. The Council's top representatives were immediately alerted. Diplomats, commanders, and spies all gathered to observe the human from behind layered shields, while machines scanned him in secret. They tried to read his body language, his heart rate, even microscopic movements of his pupils, but what they got back was more confusion. His vitals were calm, too calm. Like someone not human at all, or someone with complete control over every cell in his body. Even stranger, his DNA was human. It was cleaner, stronger, older, almost like a prototype, or perhaps the original. When asked who he was, he simply replied, "I am the first of the last." He offered no threats, only information. He said that Earth had not abandoned peace, but had moved beyond the idea of galactic politics. That the architects had chosen humanity not because of power, but because of potential. Because humans could grow, adapt, suffer, and survive more than any other race. He spoke of a time before the galaxy had order, when creation was wild and dangerous, and how that chaos had once been a strength before it was buried beneath fear and control. The architects, he claimed, had once seeded chaos into select species to preserve balance in the future. Earth was the last seed, and now it had bloomed. The Council demanded proof, of course. Anyone could speak cryptic words. But the moment they asked for evidence, something happened across the station. Every data system shut down for 11 seconds. Not crashed, paused. Time itself seemed to slow. Gravity weakened. For a moment, people felt their minds slipping into something bigger, as if seeing stars that didn't exist and hearing voices from the edge of thought. When systems returned, nothing had been damaged, yet everything felt different, like the world had shifted slightly but permanently. Then the human turned and said, "They are watching. They have always watched. Now they speak through us." Still, no weapons were drawn. No attacks were made, but fear grew stronger. The Council knew this was not just a message, it was a test. A single human had appeared, without army or weapon, and still he had brought the entire galaxy to a standstill. It wasn't about strength. It was about confidence. About inevitability. And what frightened the Council most was not what he said, but what he didn't say. He never mentioned war. Never threatened. Never asked for surrender. Because he didn't have to. His presence alone was enough to change the direction of events. Before he departed, he left a small device on the floor, no bigger than a stone. When analyzed, it revealed a map one that didn't lead to Earth, but far beyond the edge of the galaxy. A location no known ship had ever explored. It pulsed faintly, as if calling. Then the man vanished, just like he had appeared without sound, without transport. 1 second he stood among them, the next he was gone, and the station returned to silence. But the galaxy did not. Across hundreds of systems, whispers spread. The seed of fear had been planted. What had the humans become? What had they touched? And what would come next? The Council, once the peak of power, now felt like children lost in an ancient jungle. A single human had appeared and the universe had changed forever. The galaxy was no longer the same after the silent visitor disappeared without a trace. leaving behind nothing but questions and a pulsing map that led to a region beyond known space, a place untouched by any ship, any probe, or even the bravest explorers. The Galactic Council, once a proud and organized collection of the most powerful civilizations, now sat fractured and silent in their grand halls, unsure whether to pursue the map, prepare for war, or wait in fear of what might come. Tensions rose like waves in a violent storm, unpredictable and uncontrollable. Alliances began to crack under pressure, with some species demanding immediate action, while others advised patience and silence. No one knew what Earth truly intended, and the idea of the architects watching through the humans added a layer of ancient fear that none dared to speak aloud. Every direction of the human signal, and every communication attempt sent toward Earth or that unknown region returned void, no reply, no bounce, not even static. It was like calling into a void that could see you, but chose not to speak back. On neutral planets, panic took root. Rumors spread that the single human who appeared on the station was only one of many, and that more were already scattered throughout the stars, observing in silence. Some believed they were not just humans, but something else, guardians of a deeper force, messengers of the architects, or worse, the first step in a quiet invasion that wouldn't use weapons but fear itself. Religious cults began to form, worshipping the idea of Earth as the chosen world of an ancient will. Others warned against trusting any human again, demanding a full lockdown of all Earth-related systems. But Earth still said nothing. Their silence was louder than war, heavier than explosions, and more terrifying than any known weapon. It made every government second-guess its plans, question its own strength, and wonder whether attacking first would lead to doom or salvation. The map left behind by the visitor was analyzed and debated, and after weeks of arguments and threats, a decision was made to send a joint exploration fleet. The Council selected a team of scientists, soldiers, diplomats, and even spies, each one representing a different species, with one goal: to find out what lay at the edge of the galaxy and understand what Earth had discovered or awoken. The fleet, consisting of 30 ships, moved carefully, tracking the path encoded in the mysterious map. As they approached the unknown region, they noticed strange distortions, space bending in unnatural ways, time slowing for a few seconds, and systems glitching without technical cause. The closer they got, the more the universe felt wrong, like they were sailing into a dream that had teeth. Then they saw it, floating in the darkness, not a planet, not a structure, but something else. It had no form, not one that machines could define. It was both there and not there, visible but unreachable, like a hole in reality itself. And orbiting it was a single human ship, small and silent, the same kind that had arrived at the station weeks earlier. But this one was not empty. When hailed, it responded. A voice, the same calm one from before, echoed across all ships at once. You were not ready before. You still may not be. But the door is open. No one knew what the voice meant. Suddenly, all ships lost connection with their homeworlds. Not because of jamming or attack, but because something vast, invisible, had wrapped around their corner of the galaxy like a curtain of silence. Sensors picked up nothing beyond a certain point. It was like the universe had shrunk around them. One by one, systems failed, not catastrophically, but as if politely shutting down. Artificial gravity paused, then resumed. Lights flickered in patterns no one could explain. The fabric of space twisted, and for exactly 1 minute, every crew member on every ship experienced the same vision. A world that did not follow the laws of nature, a massive structure that seemed alive, and in its center, Earth not as a planet, but as something more, something awakened. Then the vision vanished, and systems came back online. But the message was clear. Earth had changed. And whatever it had touched or whatever had touched it was not meant to be controlled. The Council received fragments of data from the fleet before all communications dropped permanently. They tried to send more ships, but every one of them disappeared past a certain point, and none returned. Fear turned to silence. The galaxy, now fully aware that something beyond their knowledge had risen, chose to stop. Borders closed. The Council dissolved into regional powers, each one focused on survival, not expansion. The fear of war was gone, replaced by the fear of awakening what they could not fight. Some species isolated themselves, others turned to ancient traditions and prophecies, and a few even attempted to contact Earth again, but Earth never replied. The humans had cut ties not just from the Council, but from the galaxy itself. And yet, in dark corners, in secret labs and underground temples, stories continued. Of a map that led to the end of the stars. Of a being that looked human but wasn't. Of the architects who now watched from behind unseen veils. And of Earth, no longer a homeworld, but a symbol of something greater. Something final. The galaxy stood still, waiting, breathing in fear, not knowing whether this silence was peace or only the beginning of something far worse.